Ghana's President Mahama is leaving Addis Ababa a happy man after securing a unanimous endorsement of the entire continent of Africa for his upcoming UN vote. So on March 25th, Ghana will be tabling a resolution before the UN General Assembly to get the UN to declare the transatlantic slavery the gravest crime against humanity. And for that resolution to pass, at least a simple majority of the UN membership have to vote yes to it, which is about 97 or 98 votes. And with the endorsement of the entire African Union membership, Ghana is a lot closer to the number it needs. And this is a major win for Ghana, who have been lobbying the entire Africa and the Caribbean for this vote. My name is Nenebi Tony. I'm a Ghanaian writer who lives in the US. On this channel, I talk about geopolitics and trade from the perspective of an African. And so if you like intellectual conversations, subscribe to this channel. Now, let me read you a tweet that was sent out by Ghana's foreign minister, and then we'll get into what this means. He said, "Congratulations to President Mahama and Ghana for securing the unanimous endorsement of all African Union member states backing President Mahama's initiative to table a resolution at the UN declaring the transatlantic slave trade as the gravest crime against humanity and to demand reparations, including the return of looted objects. President Mahama is expected to secure a similar adoption at the 50th CARICOM summit on the 24th of February 2026. The resolution will be tabled at the UN General Assembly on March 25th, 2026. I commend dedicated colleagues at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and our coalition of global experts and activists for this historic milestone. Inspirational unity for truth and justice, even as we commit to reset development paradigm of our continent with a new leadership approach that creates real opportunity and wealth for our people." Basically, so last year, the African Union declared 2025 the year of reparation. And the goal of that year was to lobby the world to acknowledge the grave injustice that transatlantic slave trade was, and to get the world, particularly Europeans, to start reparation of objects that they stole from Africa when they were colonizing us. That was basically what they elected or appointed President Mahama as the champion of reparation to do. So, as part of his responsibilities as the champion of reparation for Africa's Union, President Mahama came up with the idea of tabling a resolution to declare the transatlantic slave trade the gravest crime against humanity. Now, when something is declared as a crime against humanity, what that means is that states of the UN cannot, in their state policy, say anything that contravenes this position. So, for example, Holocaust is declared as a crime against humanity, right? You cannot, in your state policy, go and say Holocaust did not happen. You can see people on Twitter saying that. You are not going to see the president of the US or somebody with important stature in the world publicly putting together a policy that contradicts the fact that the Holocaust happened. This is basically what Ghana is trying to do. Now, practically, what does this also mean? Let me give another example. So, apartheid, which happened in South Africa, was also declared as a crime against humanity. And last year, President Trump of the US came close as saying that there is white genocide against white people in South Africa. That is all Trump could have done. Trump cannot say apartheid did not happen or black people were not maltreated in South Africa. All he can do even is trying to equate the passing of a law against white people, which wasn't even what happened, but let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Passing of a law against white people in South Africa to apartheid, right? Because the fact that apartheid happened is a generally accepted truth in the world. So, what President Mahama is trying to establish is the graveness of the transatlantic slavery needs to be acknowledged in the world. And when that is done, whatever comes out of it will depend on the member states. So now Ghana and the rest of Africa is lobbying for the countries who stole resources and objects like artifacts from Africa to return it. Recent, I think it was just last week, I heard a news that Nigeria is receiving some stuff from the UK. Yeah. So what that means is that countries have started acknowledging this already with the lobbying and advocacy of President Mahama. Now, this will take it up a notch. Now, this year, today is Sunday. Yeah, I watched a press conference President Mahama did on a reparation thing, and a Ghanaian journalist asked a question that had the potential of derailing the goal Mahama had. The journalist asked President Mahama, so for reparation, how much do you want? And President Mahama smartly answered him that this is not about money. Reparation is about acknowledgement of the grave injustice that slavery was and what compensation needs to be done for it. The money aspect of it would be a different conversation. So, why that answer is important is this. The reason why reparation is a difficult conversation to have is countries who were partakers of colonialism and slavery see themselves as victims in this regard. In other words, because they were the perpetrators of the injustice of slavery, they would have to pay the victims of injustice of slavery. That is how these countries understand reparation, right? And so if Bahama has said we want $10 billion for reparation, these countries will be incentivized to vote against his resolution. So he deaded that question. And being that that question came from a Ghanaian journalist, and I know how politics work, I won't be surprised if Mahama planted that journalist to ask that question. But it's all how, this is how world leaders play the game anyway. So that is what it is about. But now let's talk about the numbers. So the UN have 193 member states. And in order to pass a resolution, unless it is declared as an important matter, it has to pass by a single majority. And for a simple majority, that would be like 97 or 98 countries. I say 97 because 93 is not a whole number. When you divide 93 by 2, you go 0.5. So that's why I keep saying 97 or 98 member states need to vote. So with this resolution or unanimous endorsement by AU, Ghana already have 54 votes. Now, next week, Ghana is going to the Caribbean countries, summit to lobby them to support this vote. And the CARICOM has 15 members. And it's likely all the 15 members will support this resolution, bringing the vote tally to about 69. And the CARICOM also have, I think, 6 observing members. So if those 6 observing members also endorse the resolution, that will bring it up to 74. Now, 74 is less than 20 away from the number you need, which is a good position for Ghana to be going into the UN on March 25th. Because for this resolution not to pass, now all the black countries in the world, in Africa and the Caribbean, are going to vote with Ghana if the CARICOM also give their unanimous endorsement. So only white and brown countries in the world would have to vote against this resolution. Optically, that will put them in a precarious position. That will mean that you white people in the world who perpetuated slavery are going to vote against a resolution to acknowledge the grave injustice slavery was. And I don't think that in 2026, European countries would be excited to take that vote. So what is likely to happen is European countries who don't want to vote yes on this resolution would abstain. And if they abstain, the number of votes Ghana need to win this resolution would come down. So Ghana could just win just with this number of black countries supporting them if, let's say, all 30 countries in Europe abstain. You understand? And so Mahama is leading Ghana to go into this election on March 25th in a position where losing would be a bad look for the United Nations and the white countries of the world, basically. And so this is good news for Ghana. I will keep you updated on what will happen on February 24th. That's next week. And so subscribe to my channel if you're interested to know how this story unfolds. Also, this week on this channel, I would have a series of videos explaining what happened at the AU summit this past weekend. We would talk about the Prime Minister of Italy's speech. We will talk about another one of the speeches President Mahama gave. And there are some other things that will come up. I think we also talk about the Epstein files and how it connects to the African Union's fight with Israel. So this will be an exciting week for those of us who love geopolitics from the perspective of an African. And so subscribe to my channel and I'll talk to you later. And that's about it.